Hello.
And there we go, another countdown, another show, and welcome to the Craig and Jane show again. So we're going to be talking tonight all about discovering your spiritual gifts. So we're going to have a chat, me and Jane, about how people can go about learning your spiritual gifts, uncovering them for yourself. How can you make these part of your life? We'd like also your questions through this. We'd like to share your experience through this. And you can go off tangents sometimes and ask other questions as well, of course, because it's kind of an open show. But we thought we'd just first of all have a chat about the type of things that are spiritual gifts, whether you're born with them, what are they, where do they come from, and how do you develop them?
And the explanations for them. For 1, clairvoyance, 2, clairsentience, and also clairaudience. These are very, very different things, and we will explain that to you.
I suppose we could start with that, couldn't we? Because
yes.
I mean, there's all sorts of spiritual gifts, but these are the three aspects of, I suppose, what you would call mediumship.
And clairvoyance.
Well, clairvoyance is part of it, isn't it? Because when we're mediums, we perceive the spirit world through what? A form of telepathy, could you call it? You know, I mean, I think of a connection with the spirit world as being a sort of telepathy, mind-to-mind communication.
And your senses, Craig, because you will sense how somebody pass, which I would call clairsentience, and a medium will actually experience that for so many seconds. Yeah,
that's right. I was going to say, it's like these are the mediumistic senses. On the one hand, we have clairvoyance, which is like the spiritualists would often describe that. It literally means clear seeing, which would mean like pictures, images and things. Clairsentience, where you sense it in your body. And also clairaudience, when you start to hear it like a voice as well. And some people will hear it objectively, like they hear it like a sound in the room. Others will hear it internally, like part of your internal dialogue, really, isn't it? So how does it work for you, Jane? Because it works for everybody differently.
Doris Stokes used to call it a psychic ear.
Yeah.
Ear. Well, every medium's different, every clairvoyant's different, and many people have different gifts in a way, like healers do. For me, when I actually got the person in front of me, I actually see images and I actually sense how somebody's passed, and I actually see pictures. And actually, sometimes I'm looking as if I'm talking to somebody in an invisible room, if you like, but I'm actually concentrating on that person visually and then relaying that message back to the person in front of me. I had a client today, I won't go too much into it, but she was waiting in the car and she says one thing, just one thing to me, then I know it's true. And this young girl had lost 2 babies. And the first thing I heard what the grandfather said, Elizabeth, and that's what she named one of the children.
Yeah, it's getting the input. This is all what we call evidence. Good mediumship is always what we call evidential, that it gives you lots of facts and things that the medium couldn't know anything else. Like when Jane did that, or when I do something like that, it's always the same. We go straight to the name. It's not, you don't throw out 1,000 different names. It sounds like the letter G, or it sounds like this. A good medium, really, particularly this, if you get this, is what you call the clairaudience. When you hear it, I hear it inside my head, but I just know the name. It's almost like a knowing, and you just say it to the person. So this is where it gets really important, where the clairaudience, actually, when it comes to mediumship, is what starts to really take it into the stratosphere, when you start to hear things that nobody could possibly know.
And also, it's a good thing, just before somebody comes to you, to build your energy up, because it can be very draining after you've done a reading. So it's best to build your energy up, and that energy will flow to that person in front of you. Then, most important, shut yourself down afterwards, because you cannot carry all that around with you all day. That's how it works for me anyway.
Yeah, and I suppose all of us do in a different way. We just understand it in different ways, really. I think of it as a bit like energy too. I think of it in terms of vibration, that everything in the universe is vibrating, and for me, I think it's a matter of getting my level of vibration in a tune with what the spirit world are giving me. So I've got to bring my vibration up somehow, and the spirit world have got to bring their vibration down to me, and at a certain point they meet and resonate, and we're kind of then literally in tune with each other. So it's getting yourself into the right space, I think, is very important with this. Getting yourself into the zone, some of us call it. Getting yourself into the right frame of mind, but then the person with you has also somehow got to get into that frame of mind as well, get into that sort of energy between you.
I always say to have an open mind. I don't mind if you're skeptical, but just wait, because I think of myself as a radio in tuning in. And I say, you're not here to please me. It's up to the spirit world to work harder. And all I ask of you is either to say that's right or that's wrong, and be completely honest with me, and then it flows.
Yeah, and this is all mediumship. But I mean, when you start thinking about some of the spiritual powers we have, we sort of expand it a bit open beyond mediumship now. If you think about some of the spiritual powers we also have, you know, it's also possible to connect into other levels of reality, perhaps you could call it, like, you know, into time. If you can connect into time and you start to be able to see the past. For example, people get glimpses of history. We can resonate with the energies of the past, and we can hold objects and read those, which is called psychometry, or we can, or retrocognition. It's also called seeing behind, and it's also we can see ahead. Precognition, and we might even see the possibilities within the fabric of time about what's going to come. So this is all kind of all linked in, and yet mediumship is somehow in with this as well, because it's all coming in a way from the same place, which I suppose Jane expressed it as energy. I would think of it as energy as well, but maybe a certain vibration of energy. And I think when you realize that everything that exists is this sort of energetic thing, both here, but everything that has existed has an energy, everything that will exist as an energy, everything that exists in other planes like the spirit world has an energy. That's how I teach people to work, to resonate with those things.
And I think you made an important thing today, said about remote reviewing. So don't you let that Putin know about us, Craig, otherwise they'd be wanting us to do a bit of remote viewing.
Well, both sides used to do that. There was lots of experiments that, I think it was Stanford University, had their remote viewing unit. I think it was Imago Swan, and people were there remote viewing the Russians across the Iron Curtain, and the Iron people on the other side of the Iron Curtain making Reagan trip up. They wouldn't have a trouble tripping up Biden nowadays, but they did in the past. The Russians used to project to trip up Reagan, I believe it was at the time. So there's all sorts of interesting things. Not just, I mean, a lot of the things we talk about, like mediumship, channeling, telepathy, empathy with people, automatic writing and things. A lot of these are all kind of connected into perceptions and things, receptive things. But I think we can also act upon things, like you're saying about remote viewing or tripping someone up. There's a lot of energy we can also connect to, where we can project energy. These are the siddhi powers that the yogis talk about. The ability, for example, to attract money. There's actual siddhi power, and this is where you get things like The Secret, books like that and things like that, and all these abundance type of things. They're trying to tap in really into another psychic power, which is the ability to attract things in your life. You can also have the ability to change circumstances around you. So I think it goes a lot deeper, don't you, Jane?
Yeah. Well, every thought you give out to the ether are real things. So if people have negative thoughts, it's like attracting negative things. If you have positive thoughts, good things. So we don't want negative things or negative people around us. We want good people around us with good values and a greater understanding. Being psychic, you have to switch off. You cannot let your brain, being psychic 24/7, you've got to switch off, and you've got to have peace at times, and you've got to shut the outside world and just relax. And Craig and I like going sitting by the sea, don't we, Craig? So when you're working and you're using your abilities and you are using to help somebody, then you've got to watch your health, because as a medium or clairvoyant, very important, because you cannot see one person after another, because your brain wouldn't take it, and you need to have a resting period. very important, because you'll find your brain will go overdrive, and then that's when we start getting monkey mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only on the mental state, but the physical level of the body too. And this is why I always think that both physical yoga is a good preparation for the spiritual work, and that's what yoga was designed for. The physical hatha yoga was designed to prepare the body ready for the meditation. And the meditation is also a way to resonate with the universe. It's objective to attain the highest states of awakening, but also on the path there's many psychic powers, spiritual powers that will occur quite naturally without actually thinking, how can I do this, how can I do this? And a lot of it comes, I think, when a person has got to a point where they are spiritually more pure, that they have adapted many of the what they call in India the nams and niyams, the idea of moral codes. I think when a person gets on a more spiritual level, becomes spiritual themselves, sometimes these natural gifts, like the gifts to attract money, for example, might come to somebody that has no desire for money. So it's all connected in to who we are spiritually and what our objectives are and our reasons for wanting these powers. And why some people like Patanjali say that we must always be prepared to let go of them, because otherwise they can weigh us down and stop us from reaching the higher states. So maybe we should take a few questions now, guys, if you've got anything on this.
What gifts do you think you have, and what gifts do you think you would like? How do you think we could all change this world with our special spiritual gifts?
And I'd say, why do you want spiritual gifts? You know, really. It's a very important thing as well, you know. Why do we want them? Do we just want them for our own personal ego? Or are we seeing them as part of service?
Today I had a lady, as you know, Craig, that phoned up, could I go and bless her house? And I've said, I'm not a priest will have to do that. And she couldn't understand why I couldn't come out and bless her house. Yeah,
and she probably lives hundreds of miles away too. I think sometimes people think we're a free service that's just there for every 5 minutes. Yeah. I have premonition dreams. Okay, good. Because often I think dreams are one of the, because one of the ideas about what we want to talk about today is how can you develop and improve your own natural abilities. And I think premonition dreams are one of the ways in. And dreams generally can give us a lot of insights into ourselves and a lot of insights into these supernormal worlds. And how do we do it? Well, I think the important thing with them is, the hardest thing we find is remembering our dreams, don't we? They fade so quickly. So I think if you want to work with dreams, Linda,
write them down.
Write them down. Keep a dream diary. Keep an intuition diary too, in a way. Write down everything that is significant to you, everything that's coming to you that you're not quite sure of, and date it. Mm-hmm. And don't always, sometimes, like I said before, we write it down as a mind map, or we write it down, we scribble down as fast as we can without trying to make it sound too logical, because the dreams will just throw a load of crazy stuff at you all at once.
We've had many people that said, oh, I dreamt of the Twin Towers and everything, and they've said it after a year past. Well, it's no good to say it after the event. It's better to say it before the event and write the dates
absolutely
down.
I mean, I know I could quote quite a few psychics that said, I've had this premonition, that, and I said, well, okay, yes, great, but where's your record of it? That's why I say put it on YouTube, or put it on Twitter, or put it on something so it's got a date reference.
That's right.
And then you can say, yes, you did say that. Otherwise, anybody can say anything. But the dream diary will also help you, Linda, to find to prove it to yourself, really, because a lot of the time it's about proving it to yourself, isn't it? So, I don't believe this, I don't believe this. That's one of the worst stumbling blocks of psychic development. You just don't believe yourself. And then suddenly you start thinking, hey, just a minute, that was right. Where did that come from? And this way, I think you start to get much more linked into your clairvoyant intuition, because it all comes through that subconscious mind, a large part of it.
Yeah. Alexander, question. Since I was 7 years old, I have had premonition dreams that always come true.
Yeah, and I think they come as a young age, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Because when we were kids, I mean, I kept a dream diary from quite a young age. I started writing a dream diary when I was a teenager, and a little bit earlier than that even, I started getting interested in them and writing them down. Most of those are gone now, but I remember finding some from the long way back and thought, my God, you know, those are things that seem to be glimpses of modern day. And so I think the sooner you start, the better. And why shouldn't 7-year-old kids start writing down premonition dreams and having premonitions? I think our minds are much purer then. We're less sceptical, aren't we? We don't sort of pull ourselves down so much. We're more accepting. We can believe the idea. Yes, we can see the future. You know, why not? And then adults start telling you, no, you can't do that sort of thing. It's not real. And I think our whole world nowadays, where it's all become so scientifically focused, has become a bit lopsided, and that we lose all that natural ability to just connect into things. So, yeah, okay. Any thoughts on that, Jen? The sound problem. I double check my mic.
I think it's a good thing to keep a diary, but most gifted children, I want to say, when they go through puberty at the age of 13, they suddenly start getting all these different gifts that come to them. And I think it's a good thing, really, children don't use them, at least till they're 18, because I feel they need to have their education first.
Yes, you would need to start. You couldn't start doing spiritualist platform work too young. But I know Gordon Higginson, who was a fabulous medium. He started very young. He started in his early teens. And became one of the great. Yeah, and became one of the greatest.
In
his early teens, I think he was about 16 years old. They first had him doing stuff.
He had a greengrocer.
I might be wrong.
Yeah.
Correct me in the comments if I'm
I
wrong.
will
for those who know
definitely
about
correct
Gordon
you.
Higginson. But I believe he started extremely young, as a very young boy.
No, his mother.
Fanny, you did.
His mother was a medium, and he used to sit and listen to her when she done home circles. And I believe he was later on in life. He had a greengrocer's with Tammy.
Oh yeah, he had his real life too.
Yes, he was an excellent medium, and I think people liked him because he spoke rather well and upper crust like, and he was quite a good medium. But there's been other good mediums. I mean, Doris Stokes was good, Doris Collins was good, Edna Twigg was good, and there's been
I liked Wolf Messing. He was one of the Russian ones. Stalin had him go in. Another psychic power is to be able to influence other people's minds, not necessarily through hypnosis, just by looking at somebody.
I'm going to influence your mind in a minute. I'm finished talking.
And Wolf Messing used to go into the banks. So Stalin told him, he didn't wanted to believe in his powers, and he told Messing, on fear of his death, he would kill him if he didn't, send him off to the gulag if he didn't do it. But he said, you're going to go in and you're going to rob that bank. You're going to go in and tell a cashier that you're going to give me all the money and walk out. So he was put in quite a difficult position, and Messing did it, plus a number of others, and Stalin took him on as being his favourite psychic. So even Stalin believed in all this.
Rasputin predicted what would happen to him. They had a job to kill him, and he had like mystical powers. He had very mystical eyes, and even Notre Dame even had a metal plate the day he would die, and the time and everything. And when they dug him up, they found that plate on him.
Yeah, and like Rasputin's a good example. There's a man that was a tremendous healer, and yet he was not a nice man.
Debauchery.
You know, so
Drunk.
It doesn't always come through good people. I talk about the importance of meditation and being all these good values and all these other things, and yet the powers can also come through broken instruments sometimes too. So it always makes me wonder, how does it ever come through wrong people, bad people? Because sometimes it does too. Because a person's a medium doesn't always mean they're good. Anyway, let's take the next question, Jane, shall we?
Yes.
I can smell perfumes, tobacco, smoke, etc. of loved ones that have passed.
Yes, that's what I would refer to as psychic breezes. So if you had, say, a grandfather that used to smoke a pipe and had passed on to the higher realms, you might suddenly smell that tobacco smell, or perfume, flowers, cigarettes, or even, it's been known, burnt toast. We had a friend that passed.
Yeah.
And when I came back, because I sat with somebody that was dying, and when I came back, Craig said, you smell of burnt toast. And his grandmother came for him, and she used to always burn the toast.
Yeah, I remember when my dad died, didn't he? The whole house filled with the smell of flowers.
Jasmine.
Jasmine flowers,
yeah.
you know,
Saibaba.
which was amazing. I mean, and it was just so dominant. Nothing had been sprayed. We heard got the news of his death in a room filled with the smell. And lots of people have described this too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Indian people might get the smell of vibhuti. People might get the smell. Jane mentioned the burnt toast, something that was relevant to that person that had died. He always used to burn the toast. It was a joke. Yeah, so the spirit will try to get through us on any level they can. If they can get through one of our perceptions and they can't get through the others, they'll try to give us a sign, perhaps through whichever the dominant sense is.
That's a wonderful thing, isn't it? When you think about it, you can smell somebody and associate with their perfume or tobacco. That's wonderful.
4711 is one that often comes up in mediumship, I've noticed.
4711.
That was the one that the older people used to use going back, and that often was
not
given
Old
as a
Spice then, what the men
Old Spice for the men, yeah.
Or karate.
Smell the smell of
karate.
Yeah. Good God.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was dreadful, wasn't it? I expect that'd be worth it, but you could get a bit on eBay for a high karate bottle, I reckon. Yeah, so it's interesting.
Chaz. I consider myself to be a psychic and a medium, but sometimes I lack confidence. Is it normal to lack confidence? Sometimes I've had these abilities. Well, let me tell you, the famous Doris Stokes, who's a fantastic medium, she's like everybody's grandma. She used to always get nervous before she went on the stage, and that's the making of a very good medium in my view. And most of them, I mean, there was another good one, Stephen O'Brien, he used to get a bit nervous, didn't he? And I think it's really where the medium's being in tuned, and they want it to be 100%, and they want to communicate to the right people, and I think that's quite good. Don't lack in confidence, just remember you're doing service for the higher realms, and just carry on. Don't lack. I think when you get older, you get more confidence, and I think Craig and I got too much confidence, haven't we, Craig?
Well, saying that, Jane, though, I always find I used to get terrified in the early days, absolutely terrified, particularly if you're doing a stage and you're doing a stage with older mediums that have been doing it all their lives, and you're a new medium and things. But you get a confidence in the end. You do get a confidence. I know it works. And I know pretty much every time you stand up on the stage, it works. Sometimes I've had difficulties and struggled. There has been times, but usually spirit help you out. And I think the actual nervousness is actually quite a good sign, really, because in many respects it shows that you're not going out there blasé thinking and it also shows you're doing the right thing, because you don't know all the names of the people in the audience like some of the cheap mediums might have done, or have got letters in advance and know the seat numbers and got photographs of people. No, none of that. You're going straight out, you're raw. You can't rehearse it, as they say. They used to say on television, we're going to rehearse. How can we rehearse? We don't know what the hell's going to happen till we stand up on the stage. So it is terrifying, but at the same time, I think it's not a bad sign that you've got nervousness. And I also think it's something to do with the adrenaline helps make the mediumship better. Maybe something happens physically in the body where a little bit of adrenaline is needed to give you that little boost to get you out there and throw yourself at it, really. You every time you work mediumship, don't you, Jen? You have to like jumping off a high diving board, and you just got to go with it. You've got to go with it and just trust and be prepared to look an idiot, and then I think then it keeps you on your level, and that nervousness is a good thing to have.
I'll correct you there, Craig. Don't prepare to look an idiot.
Well,
be prepared to do your very best.
Yes.
That's what you've got to
say, I think
Craig.
It has to be both ways, actually. You have to always do your best, but at the same time, have no fear about that. This, why I'm doing the right thing. If I get it wrong, then that's the way it is. And as they say, every sitting, every demonstration, it's always just an experiment. We can't ever guarantee results. You can't, because you're in the hands of spirit with this. Anyway, we're going to have another little break in a minute with one of our little outings, because I know a lot of you like our outings. Some of you probably hate them. But we got another one where we've been out in the hunt of spirits of the English Civil War this time. So we like to share only a short little 10-minute break, so you can go and take a comfort break now if you like, or you can enjoy watching our little 10-minute clip. Have another think about your questions. Meanwhile, you can still keep posting them because they log on the screen there, and we can put them up after this little bit. So I'm just going to click it here from where I am, as long as I don't mess it. This is talking about messing up. Let's get that. No, I'm just going to click that, and I'm just going to click that, and then Matt will get rid of the one on the side in a second. So this is it. This is what remains of Basing House, and yeah, it's there's not much left, but this is one of the most fierce battles in the English Civil War. There were terrible atrocities happened here, and people say that the ghosts of some of the people that once lived here and battled here still linger.
I think this is where the grey lady was seen, or white lady.
Yeah, there's a grey lady in one area and a white lady in another.
That's right.
The area we're going into, I believe they say there's the white lady. Puffed out again. I had to rush all the way down to the barn to get the tickets to get in. And it's quite an interesting place. Spooky, I tell you, it's spooky down there. But I was saying to camera that when they finally did the final destruction of this place, they burnt it down with all the people in it, and they burnt them alive.
Yes, and there was 3 monks, I believe, and some link with Oliver Cromwell as well, if I remember rightly.
Oh, well, Oliver Cromwell, of course, was the guy that was running the army against them.
While you was away, I was listening to the oration there, and they were stating that the villagers used to come and pinch the bricks, these red bricks, because you notice most of these houses here have got the red bricks which came from the building that got destroyed.
Yeah, I read about that too. They did it with all the famous
he said,
buildings.
Imagine coming with a wheelbarrow and you've got 3 bricks, he said, and that's why nothing's said about it.
Right. Yeah, it was a huge. This was a huge yes. House. I mean, huge,
and
enormous.
Another thing he said was, of course, William, whatever his name was, that went bankrupt, and because nobody else wanted it to go further into bankrupt, they sent people in to rip the floorboards up.
Really?
That's what he said.
So it was destroyed in the end by the villagers, the last bits that were left.
Well, they took the floorboards so nobody else could take it, because the owner was William something, and really stripped everything.
Yeah, they did it in Rome. Anyway, let's go and have a look around the grounds now and see what we can find. And see if we can pick up any feelings about the battle here, actually, because that's the bit I think is most interesting about this place. They say the soldiers still come around here. Important. This had been one of the major battle points. This obviously a wooden bridge, but it would have been here the original.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to sit in the original chair over there.
Go and sit in the original chair. Shall I go and have a quick look round?
Do.
All right. Right, let's go and have a look and see what we can see from the old battlements where most of the people died, and where most of the sightings have been of soldiers from the English Civil War. So this looks like one of the bridges to enter it. This would have been a spot of fierce fighting again. So part of the original bridge is still there, it looks like, going underneath. So it did have big cellars as well, this place, huge, great cellar areas with kitchens underneath. And it was one of the first houses to kind of have large below ground areas. Here we are, we're right in the centre now of the old house. And this looks pretty interesting. One of the things I read, there's a special secret tunnel here somewhere hidden. It's still intact. And this was used to escape the fortress when it was on fire. Some escaped, but most died in screaming agony.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think this is the escape tunnel. I'd love to go down there, I really would. Clearly a bit dangerous because it's something you would have crawled through, but God knows what spirits and energies would still be left there. A place where few people have disturbed it, I suppose. Cool, this is low, Jane, isn't it? Blimey. Oh, bloody hell.
I've been waiting for you to come back to help
You
me.
kneel, you could kneel. Gordon Bennett.
I know.
So, pick any interesting vibes up while you've been sat here?
Well, all I keep hearing here is cannons all the time, screaming.
Yeah.
And I keep seeing all buildings, they were all blood trickling down the walls and like rivers of blood.
Yeah, it would have been brutal war here.
And people screaming.
And pointless. Well, I suppose it brought us to our modern day democracy, but pointless really when you see a civil war, people against people, you know, of the same
terrible,
same background.
Wars?
Yeah.
I don't agree with any wars.
I think civil wars are the worst of them all.
Shall we have a civil cup of tea in an English civil
Yes, okay.
hut?
There are large areas we can walk around the ramparts if you want.
Get going. What are you waiting for?
But they're just grass mainly. I think that's the most interesting
I think
part.
it was. I've been waiting for you to come back. I got down. But I thought, Christ. Oh, bloody hell.
You all right?
That must have been tiny little people.
That made you jump.
Well, I thought this is the orchard. I thought that's Oliver Cromwell coming out of the bushes at us.
That's quite a nice childlike thing, but there's
But look at this. This made me laugh.
there's
the
supposed to
steps.
be here also a ghost of a child. There's supposed to be a ghostly child, and you're supposed to hear his or her laughter. I think it's supposed to be in that area over there,
Oh,
Jane.
do you
I'm going to
know
go
that?
and have a quick look.
Go on then.
The sound of the child is supposed to echo from some of these buildings. Now, there's not many buildings left for it to echo from, so perhaps if we're quiet, we might just hear something. Nope, nothing at all there. Okay. Hang on. So that's the notes that you picked up from there.
Yeah. And then it even tells you when they excavated.
Excavated it.
And they found all those bottles and bones and flints and those cannonballs. So that was the scream of a child.
It actually did sound weird, that.
Did you hear that?
I heard that, yeah. I was over there trying to see if I could hear a sound. I didn't hear anything.
Well, we're talking about flints and cannonballs. It sounded like a scream.
It did. It sounded like a
It
child.
came over there, didn't it?
Yeah, that direction.
Did you hear it?
Well, fancy that.
Because you don't
I
necessarily...
mean, I was mucking around over there with
yeah,
it.
but you don't
I mean,
necessarily... People think ghosts and apparitions come out at night. Not necessarily.
no. So in that great barn that I went and looked around, apparently that's the place where the music is supposed to appear. Weird music is supposed to circulate that place. Some people say that they claim to hear ghostly music emanating from the great barn. This is the place where the figure of a giant is supposed to have appeared. A giant shadow that people feel touches them, creeps up from behind, causes all sorts of scary stuff. Oh, sorry, I just had a horrible thought. Sorry about that. So it's gone now. I'm all right now. I'm fine. Okay. Got you.
There we go.
Well, did you enjoy that?
Well, joking aside, it was a spooky place actually. It had some lovely energies of the past there, and I do like showing those places if you're interested. You know, I know many of you Americans don't get a chance to see all these amazing castles and ruins we have in the UK. And thank you also to the patrons, because the cameras we were using on that, the GoPro 12 I think it is now we've got, with the whole set, it was really good, perfect for what we do. Came out of some of the money that you've helped to support the show, and equipment here in this room, and also most importantly the rental for the studio is all being covered by the patrons. So thank you. And if you'd like to become a patron, have a look in the link below, because in the comments, in the description of this video, and you can give a small donation. And if you want to give a bigger donation, you can come and join me online. I've got some Zoom programs coming up now again on Patreon, so you can join me on Zoom, in which we start discussing psychic things. We can discuss anything you like, because I ask you, the patrons, to make the suggestions, so we can do anything from psychic development or discussions or whatever. You get your chance as a patron for a few little behind the scenes extras.
I think we're going to say a big thank you, Craig, for Hawaii.
Oh yeah, and also thank you for the patron that, I won't say your name because I don't know if you would like me to mention it, but one of the patrons, thank you very much for sending us a lovely, great, huge box.
Hamper.
From a hamper sort of from Hawaii, with all traditional Hawaiian bits and pieces in, Hawaiian strange
and that
butters and things.
That greedy Craig's been in there already.
Yeah. So thank you very much for that. It's so lovely when people support us like this, and really sometimes asking nothing in return. And it's so good, because that's what I call spirituality, particularly when it's coming our direction.
My stomach means.
But no, thanks guys, it's really, really good, and hopefully we can all do some good in the world like this, and keep these things going. And also, if you want to learn psychic development, have a look at the site, because I'm redesigning the site at the moment. I've got some designers going to be working on it soon, so we can start doing workshops online. And I hope to be able to do a number of free readings as well, sort of things on through these YouTubes as well, through the patron parts and other things too. So, you know, there's lots going on, lots we're hoping. But me and Jane, we're just so busy. There's just so much going on all the time, which I'm really pleased, because I like being busy. Anyway, let's take a few of more of your questions. Any more thoughts about your development, about psychic skills, psychic gifts, anything we've not mentioned? Any of your thoughts?
Oh, here's a thought now.
Oh, that's in the video. Is that in the video? Did you hear
Lottie,
that?
I feel like I can hear voices quickly on the wind.
Yeah.
You've been in that toilet again.
I don't know. She might have been saying about the video, because I thought I heard some strange stuff on that video with voices. Yes, you might have put that.
We did hear a child scream. We definitely heard that.
There was something weird.
And
wasn't
we're just looking at all the information of the history of the place, and it came from a distance, and there was no children around whatsoever, and we definitely heard it. It was as clear as a bell, wasn't it?
Yeah, and actually, Lottie, that's interesting too, because on another level, actually, the ancient Greeks used to have a number of ways of prophesying about the future. One of them was to sit and listen to the wind. And you listen to the wind, and like you say there, you listen for a voice on the wind. And I suppose in a way it's a bit like looking at pictures in the clouds. You're listening for things, and you're kind of a bit like white noise, when you might hear voices in the white noise. I worked on the film for the white noise, but it's like you hear a voice within random sounds. So, and another one the ancient Greeks used to do, they said if you had a question, they would say, have the question on your mind and go and sit on the steps in the marketplace, and then listen to the first thing that somebody says. That will be the answer to your question. So this idea of prophecy and using powers has been right back to the ancient Greeks, but way back, right the way through our history. And probably the wind, Lottie, is one that a lot of people do.
So Linda, she gets a knowing. Now, does she mean she's sensing and she's just knowing within, which is quite good. Always use from your solar plexus here, when you first meet somebody and get that feeling, what you're getting from their energy, if you like them or not. Doesn't matter how good looking or how handsome they are, just get that feeling in the first few seconds, and I promise you it won't let you down.
And actually, I think, Linda, you're right, actually. It is kind of ultimately a knowing. But the skill is knowing the difference as well. To know, because there's kind of something special about that knowing, as it were. You just know. And you know it's not your own thoughts. You just know. Other people might think they know, but they might come up with crackpot stuff. So the important thing is you have to test it. So I know something. If I know your grandfather's name was Gerald, and it was Gerald, then you've proven it to a person, you see. So you've proven it to yourself as well. So you know that the knowing is true. And you only really know that you know when you've put it out there and you've worked with people. And then gradually you get the confidence to know that knowing is a real thing. And so I suggest, Linda, you practice with people if you get that. And if you feel something about someone, say, do you mind me telling you something? I think I've picked something up for you, and then say it. And that way, that's how we learn, I think. That's how we get to get the information. Ultimately, it's a knowing. It's as simple as that. You're right.
Right, Belinda, I've never seen anything but have heard and sensed things in the past. I've never seen anything but have heard and sensed things in the past. Well, are you...
So she hears and senses things.
Yeah,
she's getting clairaudience and clairsentience, but never clairvoyance. I think that's what she's saying. And maybe things from the past, she means as well. I don't know. Which you do. I mean, sometimes you can pick up memories from the past, and this is a lot. Sometimes I think about what ghosts and things are about, or battlefields. You can the energy of that place we went to in that little clip. You can sense the memory of the past. Really, it's like it's a bit of your own memory.
It's held there.
And I like to think of the world. It's everything we see and hear and feel and touch and all of our perceptions. Everything is actually a picture inside our brain. So we can connect to the world out there through the energy in here, because this is internally is what we link to the past, present and future. It's not out there somewhere, it's internally. And a bit like that idea of the knowing that you said about there, the other person, it's like, it's all within ourselves. All these gifts of spirit are within ourselves. They're not out there somewhere. They're not things coming in. Even telepathy, I don't think, is like a signal. It's in ourselves. And we connect to the internet.
And we certainly need a lot of knowing, because what's happening in France and all around the world at the moment is all being tested. Well,
just like we have a collective energy and we link together with someone psychically, I mean, that's right, isn't it? Because also the whole world connects together. So all the minds of the world are kind of interconnected, and all of us are influencing what's going on. This is why something like prayer and mantra and things can help to lift the vibration of the world, and then other things can pull it all down. Where are we at the moment with it all? It feels like the world's in quite a dark place at the moment, and has been for some years.
Well, what would the Hindus call it?
The yugas and the ages. Yeah, the turning of the ages, perhaps. Evening all. Something unusual happened this week. I was just sat and suddenly there was a crackle and yellow flash beside me. What do you think, please?
Well, sometimes that might be connected to the brain, the neurons, because I've had that where you suddenly it feels like a spark and you hear a bang, and you can feel it inside your brain, and sometimes it feels it's visually at the side of you. You've had that too.
Yeah, I think sometimes there's lots of actual effects that can happen. Also, eyesight things, actually. I mean, you get flashes if you're low on iron, if you're very low iron. I had a period where I had a very, very low iron count, dangerously low. I had to go into hospital with it. And there was I was getting flashing lights all the time. And brilliant lights, that's where, and so lots of things can have a physical reason for it. So we have to rule that out first. And I think quite often when I'm working with spirit, sometimes I see lights around a person. You see the aura, for example, and sometimes I'll see lights floating around, like if we're doing a demonstration at a theatre or something, Jane and I sometimes feel a light, or you could even feel like a wind almost, or like a pressure or a movement towards the person that you know you're with next, and then you can feel it move across the audience to someone else. Sometimes sometimes it just feels it. Sometimes you can see an actual light round people's heads. Doris Stokes used to say she'd see a light over someone's head before she knew that was the person to go to. So I suppose it's all tied up with this idea of the spiritual energy that they call the prana, or the chi, or the ki, or the ka, depending what tradition you come from. But life-trons, energy of life that moves around everything. And sometimes we see that. Well, I mean, in my circles, when I've taught before in circles, someone's screaming outside. Well, they won't hear it on camera. But as we in our circles, we used to get lights appear, sometimes flashing, and everybody in the circle would see it. We'd be in a darkened room, and these were not sort of like the firing of the eyes at the back of the eyes, the retina. These were actual things that everybody saw simultaneously, and these would be called spirit lights. So that's fascinating. I'm going to be doing a lot more teaching online in the coming months, I feel, because I'm trying to set my website up for that. I'm doing a lot of mentoring at the moment on the site, which is full up anyway at the moment. But there's workshops and things. So I'm going to be doing a lot more actual teaching if you keep an eye on the site, for those of you that are interested in sitting for development.
And I might set up a positive women's group as well.
Oh my God, not one of those.
Yay!
We don't want that. Not strong women. That's dangerous. I'm going to get banned from YouTube at this rate.
Athene, is it?
Yeah. Athena.
Beautiful, isn't it? Going through a difficult time, I held my brother's picture and quietly asked, how am I going to get through this? Immediately this loud voice shouted back, you're stronger than you think. Well, it sounds like... Now, is she saying that's her brother talking to her?
Yeah, I think she's saying
yeah,
that's her
so
brother.
It's obviously when the need is great, then the energy will flow and the spirit will come. Because obviously, you're giving out the power of thought, and obviously that's being received, and obviously guiding you and helping you. So it's not all in your mind. You definitely heard that, and going through a difficult time, very sensitive. So that definitely would have been an answer that came back to you.
And I'd also add to that to say that there's two types of clairvoyance. There's internal clairvoyance, as it were. So you hear it in your head, and it sounds like somebody actually saying it, right? And then there's objectified clairvoyance. So sometimes, again, returning to my circle, we would sit in the dark circle, and a voice would appear in the room. We'd hear a voice in the room that none of us had said or anything. You'd hear it, right? I've been doing readings with people sometimes, and a voice has been heard in the room by all of us. Or, like I remember one that really sticks in my mind, I was given a reading about a pilot, and the room filled with the sound of an aeroplane. We couldn't understand where it comes. So this is a kind of projected kind of clairvoyance. There was a really brilliant medium in the past called Leslie Flint, that he would sit in a room with people, and the darkened room in a seance sort of setting, and a voice would be heard around the room, or just move around the room, a disincarnate voice giving messages from the spirit, evidential proofs to the people sat in the room. That's a form of kind of physical clairvoyance. So these are amazing things.
That was direct voice.
Direct
known
voice,
for.
yeah.
Direct voice.
Yeah.
But you probably could be capable of that, because I'm just looking at your larynx, so I think you could do that, Craig.
Yeah, well,
right,
it used to happen in a circle.
Says, I used to be able to meditate and see things, but I've lost the ability. My mind's too restless now. You must have a clear mind and not worry so much the outside world. You've got to be as one, quite peaceful, and switch off from the outside world. Meditation is different for everybody. Somebody might walk through the woods, sit down on a nice tree log and listen to the birds, or some people might sit there and do mantras and shut the world out. Everybody does a different meditation, and I think really you've got to know yourself, what suits you best. Some people can listen to music, some people need just to sit still. So you've got too much going on, which I call monkey mind, a restless soul, very restless in the mind. So you need to have non-attachment to the outside world, and just be peaceful and quiet. And it's nice to have quiet time to shut the world. It's nice to just be still and peaceful. You don't have to go into a deep meditative state to do your meditation. You just need to be quiet and still.
And actually, I'd add to that as well, Catherine, that there are techniques that you can use, that you can do a kind of meditation techniques that can be done even when the mind is completely haywire, restless, like you're feeling. One of the ones I teach people is a thing called yoga nidra, which is a mental technique where we take our mind through the body and through certain steps. And this kind of stops the mind running around, because what often people don't do this, before you can do meditation, you first got to have what they call a concentration. You've got to be able to get the mind what they call one-pointed. So we've got to learn, before we can meditate, we've got to first learn to stop the mind wandering. And there's little techniques that can be done with that. And by doing those techniques, in itself it becomes a meditation, because it stops the restless mind from constantly rushing around. So there's lots of techniques out there. I teach some of these, but there's some very simple techniques you can use. Actually, one you can try, which is the easiest of the lot, is to simply watch the breath. Bring the mind back to the breath. And don't worry about whether you're meditating or not. Just think quietly, sit quietly, and just observe the breath. Buddha said that's the easiest one of all. That's the simplest thing. That's all you need to do. It takes you all the way to enlightenment, he said. So you could try that. And that is one of the simple techniques. But there's many out there to get the mind single pointed. Many techniques that can be used.
My meditation, I listen to Hari Krishna, and the singer has got quite a powerful voice, and the music's so gentle, it's like your body's floating. It's quite beautiful.
Yeah, mantra's another way. Mantras, whether you're listening to a mantra, you can do that, or you can internalize a mantra and hear it in your own mind, like subconscious singing. You know, like when you get a song in your mind, you can't get it off your mind. It's an annoying song, something off X Factor or something horrible, but you can replace it with a mantra, and you can internally hear it. These are very, very powerful things, which are all based on the internal processes in the body. What we call the bija mantras all have special connections with the chakras, for example, and carry a power to them. We haven't even scratched the surface of what you can do with mantra. That's a very, very powerful form of spiritual power, and can be utilized.
There's a mock. Hi Craig and Jane. I did a foundation mediumship course at the College of Psychic Studies in London. How long does it take to learn mediumship? Sometimes, my dear, it takes a lifetime. Sometimes mediums are born a medium. I think you really need to sit in a circle for at least 7 years. Would you agree?
I think, 7 years is quite a long time. It depends on the person. I think, you see, mediumship, you've either got it or you haven't ultimately, but you don't know you've got it when you've got it. When you first develop. I didn't know I had mediumship when I first started getting telepathy and things like this. I didn't really know what mediumship was. I'd never been in a spiritualist church. Then I met a medium, and I've had a reading with him, and he said to me, I want you in my circle. You've got to come into my circle. I'd only seen 2 mediums before that. That was Doris Stokes and Gordon Higginson, both brilliant mediums. And I assumed all mediums had to be like that. So when I sat in his development circle, I assumed that I had to be like Doris Stokes or Gordon Higginson. And it flowered for me quickly, and I did mine in 2 years. 2 years sitting in circle weekly. That was a very, very fast development, actually, and then I was working on the spiritualist platform, and then the real development started. And I'd say 15 years on platform before I could really be sure that my mediumship was cemented by that time. So it's not a quick process. And like Jane says, most people would say up to 7 years sitting in a regular weekly circle, and by that time you know if you got it or not. And your gift might not necessarily come out as mediumship either. It might come out as healing. It might come out as inspirational speaking. You might find trance is the way you go, or or you might find you're just an energy generator for the circle, because they're very important too. People that can give tremendous energy so the mediums can work. And that can take you on to other levels like physical mediumship and things. So it's very different for everybody. It's very different.
Can I also say, Mark, if you want to be a vehicle for spirit and they want to use you, they will use you. But always be sincere, always trying to give the best evidence you can, be sincere to yourself and to the sitter. And it's, you know, when we first come on this pathway, we all live it and breathe it. Just let it happen naturally, and I feel you're going to do a very, very good thing and help many souls, my dear.
Yeah, you're right. Let it happen naturally. It will flower if it's meant to flower. But sit regularly if you can. The College of Psychic Studies is a good organisation, as is Arthur Findlay College, both very good organisations, but they can only give you tasters. They can't take you the whole way. You need to find a regular circle to sit, and that's the important thing, and sit for as long as you can. Hopefully with one circle, hopefully in real life. I mean, the things I do are on Zoom. It's far better around a table, or around even a table, just in a circle. If you get a good teaching medium, yeah. So it's rare nowadays, unfortunately.
Right,
so this will have to be the last question now. I think.
Pat, agility bits. I get glimpses of the future sometimes, and I don't have any control over them. Is this usual, or is there a way of encouraging or stopping it? Once again, just go with the flow, Pat. And you know, it's good to write things down and then see these things that happen, because sometimes if we see the future, it might mean many years till it actually comes true. So I think really don't worry about it, just trust it.
Yeah, a lot of people that sit with me, sometimes they have the same problem. You get bits and pieces. Sometimes you get moments of absolute brilliance, they do, when they're beginning, and think, oh, I've got it, you know, and then it goes for months, and then it comes back suddenly. And I think this is what happens in the early stages of development, whether it's for mediumship or whatever form of clairvoyance you're trying to develop. You'll get momentary sort of flashes, almost as if they're trying to show you what you're capable of. I remember when I first started in Circle, in the first week or so, I gave one of the most brilliant readings to somebody, giving them all the names and surnames and road names and everything. It just came through. And that I'd never sat before. And I gave all that. And then it didn't work for weeks and weeks afterwards, hardly anything. And I think it was the spirit saying, look what you're capable of. And I think this is what happens when we get these flashes of sudden insight, or, you know, you're able to say something absolutely remarkable and you don't know where it's come from and how it's worked. They perhaps just give you little tasters about what's possible, little bits of carrot to push you along the path. And sometimes a few sticks also to push you along the path. And it's a long journey. But the more you work, the more you sit, the more it becomes embedded and the more it becomes natural to you, and you can open up to it quickly rather than even need the need for a circle or anything like that.
And also, if you do get glimpses of the future, you can't necessarily stop things that's happening, because we haven't got those kind of powers.
Yeah, well, that's true as well, because you know, the future's not set. Although there's all sorts of other powers that can develop actually are beyond these things too, because I'm very interested in the city powers, you know, and the idea of being able to be in two places at the same time, the ideas of remote viewing, the ideas of being able to
in two places at the same time,
change your destiny or change the day you're going to die, or even swap bodies with somebody. I can do with that.
That's a really good one.
There's all sorts of incredible things. It's an incredible, amazing spiritual journey we're all on in life. You know, and there's so much more when you scratch the surface of existence. You find there's so much that's been forgotten now, and it's all hopefully going to start to open up again. And I think the world will rediscover the spirit and its fantastic, wonderful sort of gifts.
We'll do it now before artificial intelligence and these drones take over.
Well, artificial intelligence can be in the way of our spirituality. It's like technology can be a wonderful thing. It can also block our nature.
What human controls it.
So before we go, I'd like to just ask everybody again, have a look at the description on the YouTube video below and have a click on the link and see if you'd like to become a patron, because what we're doing here tonight is completely supported by the patrons, and we need your help always to help keep all this going. Jane and I don't take anything from this for personal use. This is purely done as an act of service so that it can help to keep this going and keep this idea of a centre that we want to do eventually as well, to get the whole thing, the things that have been made, the predictions about what will happen in my books that you might have read about. So support the channel, become a patron. You can even go to the website too and have a look at all the services that me and Jane offer, which is for our help. You can have a look at the Nadi services we offer there, the reading services, private readings with Jane in Hampshire. If you live close enough to Hampshire or live in London, you can visit. So, you know, we work as well. So support us, support the channel, and give this video a like, because many of the videos I'm doing nowadays are getting a bit controversial if you watch Coffee with Craig. So if you keep giving them likes, the algorithm will say, oh, people like this video, we're not going to push it down the rankings. And if you've never been here before, do follow us and become a subscriber. And I think I've just about sold you the whole lot.
I think
now.
he's all talked out, don't you now?
I think we're
So
talked
I'm
out.
going to say good night. It's
And-
good night from me,
and
and it's good night from him.
Yes, so good night everyone. See you
Bye.
soon. Bye for now.